Hi everyone, welcome to the second edition of Zero to Nowhere. And last week I launched a new version of my blog, and if I'm honest, that's probably an unhealthy obsession of mine to keep recreating this blog from scratch. I don't know why I do it, but I almost every year, I end up publishing a new version, and well, this year is no different. Except maybe this year I actually created it twice. So the newest and latest and greatest version of the blog is online. And what's different this time is that I designed and built it completely from scratch, from zero lines of code and zero design. All of the previous versions I used either an existing theme or a starter project to start off with, but this time it's completely from scratch so that I have complete control over how it looks like. And I tried to make it as simple as possible. There are only two pages, the main one and the post page. And I also wrote the first adventure with tech, as I would call it. I realized that I spent a lot of time working with tech. I mean, kind of obvious, really, but I also end up spending a lot of time researching and creating something completely new. And I wanted to share the things that I put together, the things that I research and assemble together, so that someone else might find it and find it useful. So that's what Adventure with Tech is about. It's not just about front-end development, I'd say. It's about every tech-related thing I do. So that's why it's kind of so generic sounding. So that's about it for the blog. I also finished submitting the applications to the mentoring sites, Mentor Cruise and codementor. I was accepted by codementor, but sadly turned down by Mentor Cruise. The reason being that they didn't have enough mentees that match my expertise. I don't know, maybe this is just a nice way for them to reject me, not sure. But anyways, I'm in codementor, and so far I'm noticing I'm having serious flashbacks to the brief time I worked as a freelancer back when I was in Sri Lanka, because how it works is that the mentees would put up a help request. They would say, hey, I need help with this, and then the mentors would respond. And even on this platform, it seems like there's a lot more mentors than there are mentees. So the moment the mentee posts something, they are swamped by a dozen of mentors in just a couple of minutes. So it's really hard to stand out initially when I have no reviews and I only have, let's say, some strongly worded letters to get me through. But I will persevere. I will definitely keep trying, and hopefully I can find someone, or at least I think in these platforms what really matters is reaching out to the person first. So I will try to be that. So just watch like a hawk and rapidly respond to whoever posts something. So we'll give that a go. And outside of the mentoring, I also created the first mockups of the first app that I want to build, which is, as I mentioned before, is about task tracking or time tracking. Um, and it's I think of it as something for myself to help me keep track of how I spend my time and to plan my time, especially now since I'm working on my own. There's a lot of things I'm working on at the same time, and practically keeping track of all of that in my head is impossible. It just isn't. The first week, which is last week or the week before, when I tried that, I was immediately overwhelmed. There were so many things, and I was always afraid that I would forget. So I want this thing to help me keep track of all of these. And I know that there are so many apps out there that help you with time tracking or task tracking. Most of them fall into the category of to-do lists, so that you have like a bunch of to-dos which you assign to different days and give them different priorities, flags, projects, whatever. They are so complicated in a way. So I want to build something that is a lot more simple. And if I'm honest, this is not the first time I tried to build an app in this space. This is actually the third one. The first one I created back when the pandemic started in 2020. And the second one, I think, at the start of this year, or probably the start of this year, yes. And all of it was built to help me stick to goals long term. because this is what I guess what I and probably most other people struggle with, is that you make yourself a commitment. You're like, I'm going to do this, but then you can never follow through with it. It's you always forget, or something happens, and then you suddenly realize, oh, I forgot about this. So that's why I built these apps, to help me keep track of the things that I promised myself that I would do. And all these to do apps and something like this, they're not really meant for something like that. You could probably set it up in such a way that you can be reminded of the things that you committed yourself to. But on the other hand, it also doesn't. One thing I also didn't like about the existing apps is that they just don't. They seem to overlook all the progress and all the effort that you put in already. It's all about. It's more about planning what comes ahead rather than what has happened before, and that's a pity in my opinion, because for me, I find it really motivating to see that I've already spent some effort into something, and that motivates me to keep putting even more effort to push it through to the end. So these are some of the principles that I would like to embed in the thing that I'm building. So that's what I will probably work on in this week, which is I will build the first prototype. The prototype is not something I would release. I imagine it would just be something for me to see if this sort of arrangement that I've come up with in the mockups would work, at least for me. And if it works, then I will proceed, and then I will create a high fidelity version of my design to come up with the first releasable version. Although I guess if anyone is interested, I would share the prototype as well, because one thing I'm definitely trying to do is get as much feedback as possible, because I have been guilty of doing stuff entirely secretively before, where I built stuff in um, behind closed doors and no one knew what I was working on, and in the end I ended up building something that worked only for me and no one else. So I would don't want that to happen again. So I would definitely try to be more open with the things that I'm building. Hence why this blog, and with many other things as well. And apart from building this first prototype, I will also, as I said, try to get my first mentee. I hope it works out. I will probably spend most of this week trying to get the mentee. Although ideally, I'll probably only like to work 2 days on mentoring per week. Let's see how it goes.